friends over here, they're having a beer here too. It's crazy. Anyway, you know, so they can use this opportunity to go to the White House, have a beer, and they can use this as a teaching moment for the officer and help him stop his racism. Because, of course, it's the officer, the one who spent the last 5 years teaching a class to police cadets on how to avoid racial profiling, who needs the teaching moment. Anybody who has spent 2 minutes looking at the facts in this story quickly realizes Crowley isn't the racist here. But Crowley isn't the target, per se. He's just a guy that got caught in the middle of crossfire of something bigger, and I believe it is Obama's transformation of America. We know the president's views because he sat in a Marxist black liberation theology church for 20 years. He had to agree with something that was said in there. He claims, oh no, I wasn't even listening. Really? I'm not Marxist. Well, what was it that drew you there? If it wasn't Marxism, was it the radical black nationalism? He certainly has enough friends who have Marxist black liberation theology type thinking. I mean, how many new friends need to pop up like Gates? How many people do we need to see, and how many string of events do we need to see before we realize this guy means change in a completely different way? How many guys need to pop up who are friends of his who believe things like this?
Without affirmative action, we would never have been able to integrate racist, historically white institutions in American society. Our people are under assault. Newt Gingrich and company, that contract for America is serious. You know what those guys have said? All right, somehow, while we were asleep, all you white women and all you black people got into the middle class. We're not sure how it happened, but, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to shake the tree. And any of y'all who can't hold on, y'all going back. And the second thing, we're going to set up barriers so that no more of you all can get in here. Me, for someone who has benefited so much from the opportunities of affirmative action, to stand at the gate and try to keep other black people out would be to be as hypocritical as Clarence Thomas.
Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas. That's what the contract with America was. I mean, that's what it was about? Really? I completely missed that. Now, he's got friends that say things like that. There's his friend. There's Barack Obama's good friend that says things like that. And he has some really, really extra special friends also.
For the first time in my adult life, I am proud of my country because it feels like hope is finally making a comeback.
We have demonstrated President Obama's desire for racial justice. But how is he setting out to achieve it? Exactly the way a community organizer would, through intimidation, vilification, bullying, a system, an underground shell game. Look how he has handled different things. Gates, he calls the cops stupid and racist. Before he admits, he says, I don't know all of the facts, but he jumps to the conclusion that the cops are racist. Healthcare, all those evil, greedy doctors that are ripping tonsils out at will. And it's also no longer about access, universal access. It's about preferential access. His green policies. It's easy to say he wants to bankrupt the evil earth-killing coal industry. But now he's got a czar who's a self-avowed communist to make sure that it happens. Our president is not just bankrupting our country, he is fundamentally transforming it as he promised, and he is doing it to the core. In the next few years, I promise you, America will look more like Acorn in structure and less than anything that our founders had in mind. Obama handles every issue like a community organizer would, and he wants to create a civilian army. Did anybody remember this from the campaign? A civilian army in the form of community organizers. I'm quoting him, more well-funded than the military. Last year, he said, and I quote, "We cannot continue to rely on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we have set. We have got to have a civilian national security force that is just as powerful, just as strong, and just as well-funded." You got to be kidding me. If you want a government-funded civilian army of acorns, well, you're going to be a happy camper very soon if America keeps sleeping. Keith Ablow is here. He is a psychiatrist and Fox News contributor. Keith, am I jumping the gun here? I just see this this Acorn thing, and also the thing at the White House, as a sign this guy has real issues with race, real issues.
Unfortunately, and I really mean it, Glenn, unfortunately, I have to agree with you. I don't think you're jumping the gun. Americans had as their fondest hope and prayer, I think, that they were electing a colorblind president who could embrace everyone equally. I think that was the hope. I think it was the hope more than some of his policies, that here was a man who could treat everyone equally. Instead, I think we get a transparent president in this case whose feelings about white America are coming forward again. And I don't know, listen, as a psychiatrist, I'm trained to look at facts and say what fits and what doesn't. What's a theory that can hold water as to someone's personality and nature? You have someone who sat in a church with a pastor who called white people the devil, whose wife has not been proud of this country in her adult life until quite recently, who calls a Cambridge police sergeant stupid without knowing the facts, and whose friends are community organizers with questionable pasts. And so you add all that up and you say, look, there's more than an apology necessary here. This is a question of introspection. The president needs to look at himself and say, do I have prejudice that I wasn't even aware of, perhaps, toward white people?
Well, he's not, you know what, he's not going to do that. I think he's one of the more arrogant people I have ever witnessed in the office. I mean, I don't think he is, this man has absolutely no fear, and no fear of the American people, no fear in a good way, like as in fear God, no fear for the office of the presidency of the United States. I mean, you know what? You would say if somebody was arrested, a police officer arrested a black man breaking into a house, and I got on the air without any facts, I said, look, I don't know the facts on this one, but let me tell you something. Blacks are always breaking into the house. You would, the country would go crazy because that's racist to say something like that. Yeah, they went and, you know, of course he's guilty. That's what this president did. This is a clear example of reverse racism.
It is, and it's embarrassing. I mean, it speaks not only to inexperience, but to something at the core here. And listen, Barack Obama told a moving story when he was running for president about his grandmother who would stiffen. She was a white woman, and he was her grandson. And she would stiffen if she saw a black man in the street and she were alone. She was afraid. And he detected that. And he said, I can no more essentially distance myself from my pastor, the Reverend Wright, than I can from my grandmother. They both had prejudice. Well, I think psychologically speaking, it's time for him to wonder whether something about having a white grandmother who had it in for or had fear of black men really soured him on white folks at some deep level. And I don't mean this with any hatred toward him. I think there's work to be done. Who doesn't have work to be done on his or her character? But it's got to be said, listen, that's what we need. We need a Jesse Jackson moment where after he ran for president, he said, after his Hymietown remark, if I've renewed old fears, charge it to my head and not my heart. I'm an imperfect servant. God is not finished with me yet. Think of the distance between that and, hey, come over for a beer. And another thing, Glenn, the president who has an overweight woman as his candidate for Surgeon General shouldn't be having people over for beers if he's still smoking. Because there we get a triad of the most dangerous health effects in the world, and he's putting forward a national health care agenda.
I have to tell you, I can't believe you didn't bring up,
smoking, drinking.
I know. I can't believe, though, that you didn't bring up the wise Latina woman on SCOTUS. This is the kind of thing, and I've got my next story is about how they're changing, you know, immigration without going through Congress. He is looking for social justice. He is looking. These are all code words.
He's angry.
He is angry, and he is looking for somebody who's going to change things the way he wants them changed, the way he can balance the scales for everybody, not the normal procedures that our founders had intended. Right? Wrong?
Correct. Listen, I think you're right. If the psychological theory is, here's somebody who harbors anger and resentment toward white people and some distaste for them or us, then you start looking again. What fits, what doesn't fit. And when you nominate someone for the Supreme Court who says, I can